Welcome back to the Pro Sports Podcasters on YouTube. My name is Corbert Ronde. Most of you know me as Cobe, and today will be the very first video I produced this season based really on fantasy football. But for those of you that follow the channel due to NFTs specifically all day, you're going to want to pay attention here as well, because if you're like me and you're looking ahead to performance-based challenges, picking the right, in this case, running backs to collect is a big bonus when it comes to potentially winning challenges that have to do with total yards, total scrimmage yards, rushing yards, touchdowns. They're all going to factor in when it comes to the running backs. And we didn't really want to look at the obvious here. That's not what we want to do. Everybody knows, say the top 10 running backs or say top 8 minimum running backs. There could be some debate after that, but for the most part, it's pretty obvious. Generally speaking, whether one running back does better than another comes down to their utilization on their team, how successful the team is, and whether or not they remain healthy throughout the season. So that's not what we're looking at. And those aren't the picks that really win you your fantasy leagues. What we're going to look at are some of the running backs that by average draft position are going in the middle rounds. These are the ones that when it comes around to your turn to pick and you're targeting a running back, you may have to decide between 3 or 4 different running backs that have a similar value based on average draft position. Again, if you've watched some of our videos in the past or listened to the podcast in the past, specifically last season, you'll know that both Nii and I, we don't put much stock in average draft position. I mean, generally average draft positions are determined by some analyst who decides this is the order it should be in. And then everybody starts to go by that when drafting. And as a result, the draft position sort of falls into a certain grouping that everyone kind of uses as an example, but for the most part has no real basis. It's only based on someone's opinion, and it's a popularity poll based on those original opinions. A lot of cases, it's got nothing to do with how good these players actually are, what the situation is on their teams. There's a number of things that could factor in that could change where a player should go. But what we're going to do is we're going to use an average draft position as a guide as to why maybe there are specific running backs that stand out to us amongst other running backs that are close in draft position. And you know what? Let's just get right into it. We had this discussion shortly after one of our recent interviews with another gentleman who also does fantasy football, and it just got us talking. So Nii and I decided to record this particular conversation between the two of us, and I'm going to add some NFL All Day video alongside it so that you're not just listening to us talk or debate. And for those of you who are into NFL All Day, if you're like me and you're setting up your collection for performance-based challenges, pay attention, because these are some of the running backs that you could maybe get cheap because they're overlooked by a lot of people, right? They're not the obvious favorites, but could have standout games and potentially show up in challenges later on this season. Let's get into it. All right, so Nii and I are taking a look at the average draft positions. This is currently overall for running backs on Fantasy Pros. We decided to go with that website because they use an aggregate of 3 sort of fantasy analysts to determine it. And it's also based on a number of, drafts that have already occurred on different fantasy platforms and such right now. And amongst the running backs, we don't want to talk about the early picks because those are relatively obvious to most people, and everyone will have their personal preferences and that'll play a role. But we want to look at the running backs that you might not be 100% sure about. You don't really know how to rank them on your particular tier list, and which ones we would be most interested in and why we'd pick them for a number of different reasons. And we're going to begin with numbers 25 through 29, and they include, in order, A.J. Dillon, Devin Singletary, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Damian Harris, and Miles Sanders. Begin with Nii, and let's talk a little bit about these 5 running backs and what we like about them, what we dislike about them.
Yeah, Cobe, this is an interesting section that we've identified here, because these are guys who can turn it on, but they may not necessarily turn it on week to week for a variety of reasons. So A.J. Dillon, for example, he's a big bruiser, but he's got Aaron Jones on a big contract in front of him in Green Bay.
Yes.
Devin Singletary, again, has that touchdown upside in Buffalo, but he also has Josh Allen as a quarterback, as well as James Cook potentially siphoning away some of those goal line touches. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in Kansas City, well, I mean, he was meant to be the darling 2 or 3 years ago. It's a pass-heavy offense. Is not necessarily a bell cow back in the AFC West out there. Going over to New England, it's really a case of who Belichick is feeling on the day. It could be Damian Harris, could be Ramondre Stevenson, could be James White, it could be the fullback Devlin or whatever his name is. Really comes down to whatever Bill Belichick's feeling like on the day. And then Philadelphia, this is interesting, Miles Sanders, because this is not so much about his teammates or his scheme as much as him. I think if he stays healthy, he has the most upside of all of these guys, because the Eagles are going to take a step forward. The schedule isn't too bad for them. I'd say it's pretty favorable, particularly being in that NFC East. But Miles Sanders, if he can stay healthy, I don't think Hurts takes too much away from him compared to the likes of Josh Allen. But Sanders has potential to be a bounce-back candidate for 2022. Cobe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I got to agree with you 100% here. So I was actually kind of surprised when I looked at this listing as to where Miles Sanders fell within that group, because of the 5 running backs there. First of all, I'd say Philadelphia has improved more than any of those other teams in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
They've made some significant additions. They're going to be a better team. He is definitely their number one, which you can't necessarily say about Singletary. You definitely can't say it about Dillon. Harris, who knows, right? I mean, the only other true number one there, I would say, would be Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Right.
And ability-wise, I would stack him up against any of those guys. I would put him number one in as far as skill set goes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? For me, amongst those 5, I mean, that's the one I'm drafting.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I would probably take Miles Sanders, maybe closely followed by A.J. Dillon, but we'd have to see when it comes down to it on draft day.
So both of us has shied away from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who, for the most part, most people would probably think, why wouldn't you just go with the Kansas City offense? And you made a good point saying that it's a basically throw first offense. But I mean, I always look at this as from a PPR perspective, and it's like, well, he could make a lot of catches. That's not the case. Mahomes doesn't check down, does he?
No. If he's throwing, it's either to his mate Kelsey across the middle, or he's throwing long. He used to throw long to Tyreek Hill. I don't know who's going to be this time around, but that's what he would do. Yeah,
they've got new Sky Moore.
Yes, they got Sky Moore. They got Juju. They got a couple of new kids in the class. So
that will be the new sort of Tyreek Hill. Whichever one stands out probably in the preseason is going to take that role.
So my question is this: are we assuming that Kansas City is going to remain at that high level of play, or are they going to be playing behind more, which is going to negate the need to run the ball?
I think they're going to be playing from behind more. I think this is a down year for Kansas City.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, particularly with the shakeup in that division, the rise of the Chargers, the potential comeback of the Raiders after years of mismanagement by Gruden, and then the guys at Mile High in Denver.
All right. So that was a relatively easy one. You and I really agreed quickly on one. That's unusual. That might be a first.
We'll see. Right. We'll see what the next one is.
All right. So for the whole NFL all-day crew, NFTs, get out there, grab your Miles Sanders. He's still dirt cheap on the marketplace, so it could be time to stack him up and take advantage. All right, let's get on to the next 5. We've got Rashaad Penny, Tony Pollard, Cordarrelle Patterson, Kareem Hunt, and Michael Carter. Who do you like there, Nii?
Honestly, I got to take Tony Pollard. I know some would be expecting Rashaad Penny because of what's happened in Seattle and the potential for him to be the number one back, but he's been the potential number one back there for 2 or 3 years now. So
since they drafted him, that's right.
Let's not. For me, Zeke is in decline. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what any of your Dallas mates say. Tony Pollard is the guy. Tony Pollard has the potential, and it's only a matter of time before he takes over that backfield. That's just my thoughts. I think Cordarrelle Patterson, they'll probably use him more as a wide receiver this season. Now they brought in Tyler Algier from the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Kareem Hunt, we're just not sure what's happening with Cleveland. I'm assuming that Deshaun Watson's not going to play. They will lead on the run, so Kareem Hunt will probably get his, but he's a 1B to Nick Chubb's 1A, and they've got guys like Dearness Johnson and other guys in that backfield. We're just not sure what's going to happen with Cleveland. And then the New York Jets, Michael Carter, that was his backfield to own, and then they went ahead and drafted another running back this year. So the front office is kind of telling you what they think of Michael Carter in a way by doing that. So I got to go back to Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I was surprised by the draft pick by the Jets because Michael Carter looked great last season on a shit team, right? Like, it's not easy to look great as a running back on a bad offense.
Yeah.
So to go ahead and pretty much draft the number one running back in this year's draft, that's a big warning sign when it comes to Carter. Kareem Hunt, I fully agree with you. He's still the number 2. Nick Chubb's by far the number 1. And I think he actually gets less work this year.
Mm-hmm.
Cordarrelle Patterson, I mean, if we did this segment last season, he'd be part of our wide receivers group. So I don't know if you could really trust the situation there. Plus, I mean, I guess it's Mariota is the quarterback there now.
Yeah, for
right?
the time being. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I like your pick of Pollard. First of all, Dallas has got a dynamic offense. Even if it's a 50-50 split, that's going to be a lot of touches for Pollard. I agree that he will eventually take over the number 1 spot. I don't think it'll be this season, though. I disagree with you there.
Okay.
And then with Rashaad Penny, I mean, I'm a Seattle fan, and every year I'm like, man, what a wasted pick on Penny. They traded back up, I think, if I remember right, to get Penny. You know, it's like we'll trade back into the end of the first round and grab Penny. Like that seemed like a waste. In hindsight, they still have Chris Carson.
Oh, yeah?
I think he's still on contract there. I don't know what his health.
That rings a bell. Yeah.
I don't know what his health's like, but I mean, if he's able to play, I'm pretty sure they're going to play him, and I'm pretty sure they'll play him ahead of Penny. So this is a difficult one for me, honestly. Man.
Yeah.
Pollard's a relatively safe pick, I think, but I honestly think Cordarrelle Patterson established himself well enough last season to get used a lot this season, maybe even incorporated more. I think for me, it would be Cordarrelle Patterson here on a shitty Atlanta team.
I think another factor is if he is in your league as a wide receiver and running back, I'd definitely take a long look at him, and I'd probably take him over Pollard in that respect. If it's just strictly running back, I prefer Pollard, but that dual designation, that's really valuable, especially when those bye weeks come around. That's gold.
Yeah, if you got the ability to slot him in anywhere, basically, it gives you some freedom as far as what your bench looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think it's between those two. It's definitely not Penny. It's definitely not Hunt. I feel bad for Michael Carter. Brutal, man. Brutal. Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll do one more. We'll do one more of the running backs. This is an interesting group, actually. We've got Chase Edmonds, Melvin Gordon III, Ken Walker III, Ramondre Stevenson, and Isaiah Spiller. Take a shot at that one.
Yeah, I'll have to go with. It's not easy.
No.
Let's do this by process of elimination. I'm not interested in the Miami backfield. I know it's the first year coach and it's a new offense and whatnot, but no, I'm not interested in Chase Edmonds. I'm not really interested in Melvin Gordon because I feel like that's Javonte Williams' backfield. I try to steer clear of Belichick's tricks. So no Ramondre Stevenson. Isaiah Spiller is interesting because I do feel like Austin Eckler misses time 2022. So Isaiah Spiller is intriguing for me. I think that he could step up and take control of that. And then Ken Walker. So they drafted him for a reason. Mm-hmm. Obviously, so that tells you what they think of Rashaad Penny in a way. And to some extent, Chris Carson, who's almost out the door as it is. I do think that Pete Carroll, this is probably his last run as a head coach. He's going to want to give it a crack with the guys at his disposal. So I think Ken Walker sees the field, and I think he sees a lot of touches, whether it's Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, Drew Lock, doesn't matter who the quarterback is. But I do think that Ken Walker has a little bit of run. He's someone I would look at in redraft leagues for sure.
Okay, yeah. Let's to go with what you did. I got to agree with you when it comes to New England. I don't trust Ramondre Stevenson at all in that position. Isaiah Spiller has shown flashes of greatness in the past. I don't know. I think Eckler's so important. Even if an injury occurs, I still think he's going to get enough touches, period. So I'm out on Spiller. Edmonds has had chances in a few cases and never really shone. So no, I'm out there too. Yeah, it's Gordon and Walker for me, right? So I got to go with Melvin Gordon here. Keep in mind, I'm a fan of both those teams, Denver and Seattle. But I just think Melvin Gordon, he shopped himself around in the offseason. There weren't any takers. He agreed to come back to Denver for 1 year on a relatively cheap contract. I just think they're going to abuse him. They're going to use him as much as they can this season to keep Javonte Williams fresh. And because of that, he's going to get a lot of the hard yards, maybe goal line touches and such. And I also like Denver to be a high-scoring offense with Russell there now and the weapons they have around them. I think he gets a lot of opportunities in the red zone, and I think that might be the difference for me. That's why I go with Gordon.
Okay. Watch this space.
All right. Nice, Nii.
There we go.